Okay, so this video is going to be about the subjects of Ymir, aka kind of the Eldians themselves. Not necessarily specifically about any real specific Eldian particularly. It's the way that the Eldians are viewed by the rest of the world. And by that I mean the way that the Eldians in other cultures, particularly in Marley and their allies, are depicted as these horrible monsters that have done nothing but want to destroy people for the past 1800 years or so since Emir Fritz gained the power. And in that time frame, you know back when back when Amir first came along, we see this in the when Amir Fritz first came along, we see this in the flashback, where it's revealed of who she actually was, where her power came from, and everything. That she was just this little girl that was blamed for letting pigs free. Whether or not she's the one that actually let the pigs free is still kind of up for debate, but I've seen some panels that may indicate that she was, but we don't know. And she goes and she gets blamed, so Carl Fritz frees her, and she runs through the forest getting shot at by arrows and hunted by dogs and his soldiers until she's been hit at least by one or two arrows, but she's still running, and she makes it to this tree. She falls into the tree, and then this spiny thing comes along and attaches to her, and then she changes into a titan for the first time. And this huge titan is then it's this huge freaking powerful creature, but it's still a little girl on the inside that was a slave and has probably been a slave most of her life. And then Carl Fritz uses this to his advantage, uses her power to subjugate the Marleyans, subjugate other tribes, other cultures. And then he allows her to bear his children, and then we get Maria, Rose, and Sheena, of course, which end up becoming the three that turn in that the three walls are of course named after. And then we know that we see through the flashback that Ymir, she kept fighting and being a titan, changing into a titan. I don't remember if they specifically state in the manga when they figure out that her spinal fluid from the founding titan or from the beast titan, because the beast titan comes along later, injected into a regular Eldian will then allow that Eldian will force that Eldian to turn into a titan. We don't know exactly when that first became true, when that first was discovered, but we know that when Ymir sacrificed herself, when she took the spear, instead of letting Fritz be being assassinated, probably would have been the better idea to let him be assassinated. That he then has her own children devour her, which is extremely disturbing. And and then they each gain powers of the Titans, and then he tells them and then your children and your children's children and your children's children's children, on and on and on, keep passing. When you die, they eat the spine. When you die, they eat the spine. On and on. And then we get the 9 Titans develop and everything, and the founding Titan in control, or the one that can control them and that connects all the Eldians. And then there's all the other the attack, the beast, the cart, the armored, the colossal, the female, the attack, the jaw titan. I think I missed one, but I don't remember. Did I miss one, or did I get them all? I don't remember. But yeah, we they have all of them and everything. And they just keep spreading. And I mentioned this in one of the other videos, not one of the religion in the walls videos that I'm doing, but in one of the either one of the the season videos that I talked about, where I was talking about part of the season, or in one of the other videos where I just talked about Amir Fritz in general, or one of those things. I don't remember exactly which, but one of those things. And I mentioned the fact that Fritz had his 3 daughters with Ymir, and that they were kind of princesses, but he still looked at Ymir as nothing more than a slave and a tool and a weapon. He looked at her as nothing more than that, and apparently a bed warmer, which is a horrible way of putting it. And, you know, they had their daughters, and but then he just basically used them the same way. He just used them to keep, conquering more and more and more, and probably had his own, children from another spouse, from one of his other wives or harem or whatever, probably were the ones that were actually in control. And then eventually, one of the royal, one of maybe to keep the power in the family or something, one of his other descendants married one of Ymir's descendants to keep that power in the royal line. And then, because the Eldians are said to be descendants of Ymir, but they're the subjects of Ymir, but they're Eldians, so she's either the ancestor of every single one of them, or it's just this specific race of people that happen to share the same blood that she does. So there's that so which one is it type thing, and I could have missed something when I was looking some of this up, but they have that there. And what we see, of course, in the flashback is, and some of the other flashbacks that we get with Ymir, that, it could have just been that, he's like, okay, yeah, well, you three still have the power from your mother, but you have to listen to, your brother from this other wife, or whatever, your half brother from this other wife of mine, and they're the ones that are actually the king. You just have to obey them. And then, that they were just treated more as weapons. And, eventually one of them did end up, becoming the royal line, and, kept having, the royal blood and more children, and the founding Titan kept getting passed down and everything, ones that were raised to believe, to follow in Ymir or Karl Fritz's footsteps of keep conquering the Marleyans, keep conquering these other races and everything. And, it probably wasn't nearly as bad as what the Marleyans say, because of course with what the Marleyans say about the Eldians, what Grisha is told by his father, and what Grisha's father tells Zeke, and what the other Eldian children are taught in their schools and everything, probably is that oh, your ancestor Ymir Fritz, she made this deal with the devil of all earth, and she's the spawn of the devil and everything, and that she made this horrible this deal with them for the power of the Titans and everything, and that that all of she just let her people just kill other races, destroy other things, force other races to have their children, just to increase more of their power and everything, and did all that horrible stuff, and yeah, okay, maybe she built some roads or did something like that along the way, but she just did all this horrible stuff. Yeah, there were roads, but they were paved with the bloods of Marleyans and other races, for the Eldians just to walk on and everything. And that they did all these horrible things. They attacked innocent cities. They would kill children and innocents and regular civilians and all this other stuff, and do all these horrible things. And and then the Titan Wars came along, with the the ruling family, the Fritz line, holding the power of the founding Titan and trying to keep balance between all these other families that had the other Titans. Warhammer Titan, that was the one that I forgot. I knew I was gonna forget one of them. Warhammer Titan, the Tiber family, exactly. That they were one of the ones that had the power of one of the Titans that stayed in that family line. And with the other Titans, it could have been that previous generations, yeah, it stayed in this family line, but then somehow it it got stolen. Someone else got turned into a Titan and they devoured them, and then they took the power and left. Whatever the case may be. We don't know how often they were changing other Eldians into Titans back then, and we don't know when the full process became. As soon as someone that had the original process was quite obviously, oh, when the person who has the original Titan died, the previous wielder of it died, it's, and, Fritz said it himself, have them have, your descendant eat your spine. And, that's where they figure that out of, like, it probably, like, okay, the person's dead or whatever, they're going to reach the end of their 13 years. Okay, they kill them and then they, like, chop out part of their spine and then they give it to someone of, that they want to have the next power again that's loyal to the royal family or loyal to whatever said family, and then they make them eat that, which is disgusting and horrible. And hope to God you don't remember. And then, like, they just keep doing that. And then eventually it evolved into the process of, okay, well, we have the ability to, extract, the spinal fluid of, the beast titan or the founding titan. We can extract that fluid, and then we can inject it into whoever it is that we want to turn into a titan, and then they'll turn into a titan, and then they devour the person instead. So it's like they're kind of, they're turned into a pure titan, so they can't remember doing it, because, like, Eren doesn't remember what he did to his father until a lot later on, between his memories and Grish's memories overlapping, and then he's like, oh, that's what I did. And, Bertolt, says to Ymir, I don't even remember who it was I ate, so I'm not surprised that you don't remember that it was, Marcel that you ate and everything. Reiner probably doesn't remember his. Zeke probably out of all of them, Zeke was the one that probably had the closest relationship with his predecessor, barring, like, the Tiber family and the Reese/Frisk family. Zeke was probably the one that had the closest, relationship there with, Tom. And I mean, like, Zeke and Grace, or Zeke and Colt seem to be fairly, yeah, they seem to be getting along okay. So, there's that there. But, eventually, the Eldians figured that out. If that's how you transfer it even better and everything. And then, they would still have the ability to turn other Eldians into Titans. We don't know exactly when that became true. Like, I kind of want to know, but I don't want to know the process that it was originally. Like, how did they turn other people into Titans? Because, like, they reference some different horrible things that, like, the Eldians had done over the years, in the past and everything. That was, for why that the Eldians need to be punished. Now, one of them was called, like, the fall of Lago, which was, Grish's father talks to Zeke about this. In the fact that, it's like, your parents are teaching you this stuff, right? About, that how, the Eldians had attacked Largo, how they had sent in hordes and hordes of Titans, so many, what was it, like 700 years ago or something like that. I don't remember exactly. It was like 700, something like that. I don't remember exactly how long ago they said it was, so many hundred years ago, they sent these hordes of Titans in to attack Largo and kill everyone there. And then, the Eldians came in and they, were down in control of Lago. I keep saying Largo. I'm like, no, that's wrong. It's Lago. And then, like, there's another one that they mentioned, like the devastation at Monte, which we don't really learn anything about that. There's the ravaging of Vali, which is, it's, they say that it results in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Marleyans and probably other races too in the, the Marleyan history books. And the history books of the other countries where other Eldians are. And, other countries, we know, in the timeline, other countries had Eldians living in them. And when the Eldians were no longer kind of the dominant ones, they still had Eldians living there, but the Marleyans were the ones that had the Titans. They were the ones that had, the Beast Titan and all these other Titans that could change the other Eldians into Titans. That's why in the, at the beginning of season 4, when we see them having the big battle at Fort Salta, that, they drop, they have all these soldiers there, up in the plains and everything, that they have them all there and ready. And they've probably all been, they drank the wine or spinal fluid or whatever it is that they had from Zeke to change them, to put Zeke's, blood or genetics or spinal fluid or whatever into them, so that way, when they're exposed to Zeke's roar, which we see this happen, they drop them out of the plains, and then Zeke roars. Even in his human form, he roars, and then they change into Titans, and then they're dropped onto the fort, and then they attack the fort. And the fort, then they use their anti-cannon or anti-Titan cannons to attack them and hurt them and cause them and such. And then that allowed Reiner to be able to see where the cannons were, so that way when he landed, he would know what to attack. He would know to take out these cannons, take out those cannons, and then that that allows us to then take the fort. And then that will allow this other group to come in, and they can attack this, and we can stop this Marley Mideast war and this problem. And so we have that, and so it's kind of no wonder that the rest of the world basically looks at Ymir's children, the subjects of Ymir, the Eldians, as nothing but these horrible things that, it's no wonder that they do that, that they're descendants of the devil, spawn of the devil, evil, horrid things. When we see Grisha and Faye run out, when they run out of the internment zone, when they run out of the Liberio internment zone, that they end up, they just get looked at like they're nothing but like scum on the bottom of someone's shoe, or less than that. And we see this with Grisha and Dina, when Grisha and Dina take Zeke up to this this clock tower or whatever to look out over Liberio, and then they're identified as Eldians because of their armbands, and they get water thrown at them, and then they're just ridiculed all the way back to Liberio. And and it's that never-ending cycle of punishing the person for something they didn't do, that was the punishing the child for the sins of the parent. And that is kind of one of the cycle things that I think was supposed to be representative of something that needs to be broken with Attack on Titan. You can't blame a child for what their parent did. You can't blame Eren for what Grisha did by a technicality. You can't punish, Mikasa for what Kenny did. They're related, but you can't blame her or Levi for what Kenny did. You can't blame, Historia for what Rod did. You can't do that. It's stupid. You can't punish a child for something that their parents did. And it's not a fun thing to watch, because you just see it they have the illustrations that we see throughout the course of the series that are the Titans attacking other people, the Titan wars that happen. Ymir Fritz looks like she's lording over something. All these other things that we see, and it's just they just get squashed or trampled, or they're burned, or they're being attacked by other things. We get a lot of the the ending animation and everything in regards to the end credits, or even the opening credits and everything, where we see all of the Titans coming in and attacking things and killing people. And it's just so much of that, one on top of the other, that we just see all these horrible images. And it's the Eldians that are in the internment zones, that aren't on Paradise, that are in the internment zones, all they're exposed to, all these kids are ever exposed to in their schools, because it's pretty it's Eldian, it's Marleyan approved curriculum that they're allowed to teach. And the only Eldians that this does not apply to are the Tybers, because the Tybers are, of course, the carriers of the Warhammer, and they were allies of Helios, way back when. And on that note, I can talk a little bit about Helios, because in Attack on Titan, in the Marleyan mythology type stuff, they have this hero whose name is Helios, or Helios, depending on which way you want to refer to him as. Both kind of are correct in regards to pronouncing it from what I've seen. What we find out is that he was this Marleyan warrior who, killed the devil of all earth, which is a representation of, he's this hero that, that the Tybers and the Marleyan government created, 100 years ago, along with kind of, the assistance of Karl Fritz, to have this hero be this, this Marleyan hero come and, scare off Karl Fritz and send him packing and everything. And we see this depicted in Willie Tybers' play, which again, I gotta give the guy props on his, stage direction and planning and his artistic skills. He did a good job with it. I gotta at least give the man that. I gotta give the man credit where credit is due in that case. Um, um, Eh. But like he talks about that and like it's like oh this Helios came along and he was this hero and he worked with the Warhammer Titan with the Tiber at the time and they were able to defeat Karl Fritz and send him running with like his tail between his legs to Paradise and then he made the walls with all the Titans in it and everything and with all the colossal Titans and but it's a lie and it's revealed to be a lie and in the series we see in the manga and in the anime we see this statue of what's supposed to be Helios stabbing through looks like the head of a Titan and I think it's probably supposed to be like a representation of like the Titan that was what Karl Fritz the 145th king of the first king of the walls man with too many names um, could turn into that it's that representation and that it's destroying that it was the thing that defeated the Eldians. The Helios was the hero that defeated the Eldians and saved the Marleyans and saved the other nations from this horrible fate of having to serve the Eldians more and more and deal with their ravaging and their death and their slaughter and their pillaging and all this other stuff. And it's a complete and utter lie. But the Eldian children are raised to believe this. The Marleyan children are raised to believe this. Even probably like the Tiber children are to a degree raised to believe this. But because they're Tibers, they're like, but you're the exception to the rule. The Marleyans. You have the status of being a Marleyan because you're a Tiber. Willie Tiber had that. His sister Laura had that. His wife and his children all had this, and but it's kind of a lie. It's they have that status there that is immune from being treated as horribly as the rest of the Eldians were. But if like Willie Tiber decided to like go undercover and like put on one of the armbands and cut his hair, dye his hair, change his look a little bit, wear not his super nice clothing, and then like walk among the Marleyans, he would get just as ridiculed as any other Eldian. He would get rocks thrown at him. He would get water thrown at him. He would get, shoved aside. He would get insulted. He would get threatened. He would get punched. He would get kicked. He would get whatever. And it would all be the same, all because of that stupid armband. And, we see, something similar happened with Tom because, and I went over this in the Marleyan Warrior Project video that I did, that Tom mentioned that he tells Zeke about his wife and his son, and that he had been happy with them and everything, and he had hidden the fact from his wife that he was an Eldian, and and everything, because he didn't go around wearing his armband and he didn't live in the internment zone and everything. He was outside of it, and they were happy, and they had their son. And then he became, the Beast Titan, gained that power of being one of the warriors, that status, and he goes to her and he's like, oh, I've got this status now. And then she just slits their son's throat in her throat because she's so ashamed about the fact that she basically, in her mind, she's probably like, this Eldian tricked me for the past however many years, tricked me into falling in love with him, tricked me into marrying him, tricked me into having a child with him. And, yeah, okay, he's a warrior now, but that doesn't matter. He still tricked me into all this stuff. And, that whole, probably a concept of like that whole shame of he did this to me. I've had a child with this man. My blood's combined with him and I married him and everything. And it's that whole concept of that dishonor inside of her head, that she's like, the only way to like, redeem myself from this is to kill myself and kill my son, because I don't need to live with the horror, the shame of basically having everybody point out the fact of, oh, you got tricked by an Eldian into marrying you and falling in love with you and having a child with you and all of that. And my son doesn't need to grow up with, that demon, that devil spawn of the devil blood inside of him. And it's just disgusting and horrible. And yeah, you can kind of see where I fall on that. It's horrible. And you know, later on we see, you know, the Eldians, when the Eldians on Paradise, when they find out about it, when on Paradise, when they learn about all this stuff, that, oh, we're Eldians and we can change into these things, and we're ones that can turn into Titans, and we're this race, and we're these people, and we had an empire, and like all this other stuff. And then they try to like kind of want to restart the Eldian Empire. And they start referring to themselves as that, as an empire, as a kingdom. And then they kind of basically do the same thing to the Marleyans, to all the Marleyans that they captured when they brought the ships ashore, that were like Yelena and Anyan Capone, and like all the other ones that were there, and the one that was Sasha's friend. I just, you see all of that, and what they did basically to the Marleyans is the same thing that the Marleyans had done to the Eldians. They criticized them, they downtrodden them, they, made them do remedial things. And yeah, okay, so yeah, they were still trying to work with them, and they still let them live kind of in comfort. They weren't, oh, you can only go here. But we see when, oh frick, why can't I remember his name? That was Sasha's friend. Niccolo. That was the name I was trying to remember. Sorry, yeah, Niccolo. He went to go and visit the cemetery where Sasha was buried, and he gets beat up by the guards. And then, Jean and Connie come by. I was like, no, John and Connie come by. I was like, no, he's fine. He's our friend. He was Sasha's friend. It's fine. And, Sasha's father, Mr. Brass, doesn't hold anything against him. And, he's like, you were my daughter's friend. That's all that mattered. That's, you're here because you were her friend. You're at her funeral to say goodbye to her because you were her friend. And I don't care if you're Marleyan. I don't care if you're, Eldian or Marleyan or whatever. You cared for my daughter. You were her friend. And that's the only thing I care about. And yes, of course, I will be happy to eat a meal with you that you've made and everything. And we see the way that Gabby acts when her and Falco are on Paradise after they escape after they escape. And she's like, I need to wear my armband because it reminds me that I'm one of the good Eldians. I'm not one of the devil's scum, one of the island devils and everything. And, we see the way that she acts and everything, and she tries to kill Kaya, and then Kaya tries to kill her, and then that kind of gets reversed and everything. And, and we have the moment where Gabby, learns from Kaya that, Sasha saved me. And, my mom never did anything wrong, so why should my mom be punished for something that our ancestors did? It's, so many of the people inside the walls, they didn't kill anyone outside the walls. They didn't kill the Marleyans. They didn't do any of this other stuff. They didn't, do anything along those lines. It's just, Gabby was just raised her entire life to believe that, Eldians that are willing to sacrifice themselves for Marley, that are willing to try to become the warriors, or that are willing to, let themselves be turned into Titans to be dropped onto enemy territory, those are the ones that can be redeemed. Whereas those who are the island devils, as she puts it, are nothing more than those that should be disposed of. And it's just really hard to watch. And we do see the moment in the anime. I think we've kind of seen some of that in the anime, but where we'll see it more in the anime when they get the rest of it done. More of the way that Gabby acts, more of the way that she's like, no, they shouldn't be punished for something that they didn't do. They shouldn't have that done to them. It's not right. It's not fair. And we'll see that change there with Gabby a bit more. We kind of saw a little bit of it at the end of the first at the end of the first half of season 4. But we'll see the rest of it throughout the rest of the series, because we know by the end of the series that Gabby and Falco are kind of taking care of Levi at this point in time, which is still one of those moments where it's just like, okay, how did never mind. Moving on. But of course, the Eldians, of course, are still looked upon by most of the world as nothing but devils, scum, all of that. The rumbling probably didn't help. Sorry, Aaron. The rumbling did not change the way the rest of the world looks at Eldia. It's just as like, okay, well, they don't have the power to turn into Titans anymore, but they're still humans, so we can still go in and attack them now, and we can still destroy them and still punish the descendants for something that their ancestors did. When that's the complete and utter point, one of the complete and utter points of the series is that you shouldn't punish children for what their parents did. You shouldn't punish someone who's alive now for what their ancestors did, 1,800 years ago. But that's what we got for this one. I got one more of these to record, and that's going to be the Titan Worshippers, and I'm actually going to go just record that now so I have it done. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and my rambling, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye!